what we can do.
Hello and welcome. I'm Kriti Mehta and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines this hour. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer says imposing tariffs on allies is wrong after President Trump threatens duties over Greenland. Trump plans 10% tariffs by February, rising to 25% by June. After Starmer, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz holds a press conference as when confronted with unreasonable US tariffs, the European Union is in a position to react. Taliban Interior Minister says several people were killed in a blast in Kabul's Shahri-Now area. The area is home to foreigners and is considered one of the most secure in Kabul. Danish officials have decided to skip the World Economic Forum in Davos. This comes amid intensified dispute over Greenland that's shaking transatlantic relations. UAE's President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed is in India for a high-level meeting with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The talks are likely to focus on India-UAE comprehensive strategic partnership and the prevailing global issues. At least 39 people were killed after two trains collided near Cordoba in southern Spain. Over 70 are hospitalized as authorities launch an investigation into the cause. Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces say an armed group was attacking Shadadi prison in Hasaka in Syria's northeast, where it said thousands of Islamic State militants were being held. Novak Djokovic creates history, clinches 100 career wins at Australian Open at Melbourne Park as he beats Pedro Martinez in the first round of 2026 Grand Slam. And viewers, let's start with our focus on Trump's tariff threats to the Europe. Europe is preparing a unified response to US President Donald Trump, including Denmark, over the opposition to his plans for Greenland. The German Vice Chancellor has condemned the threat, calling it a blackmail, and vowed that Europe would not be intimidated.
C'est évidemment un moment important pour l'Europe, et dans tous les moments importants pour l'Europe, la capacité de la France et l'Allemagne à travailler ensemble de manière proche est un élément essentiel de notre capacité à avancer ensemble. Les menaces dont on fait l'objet depuis maintenant un peu plus de 48 heures sont inacceptables. Lars a parlé de chantage, je parle de menaces. Nous devons évidemment tout faire pour que ces menaces n'arrivent pas à réalité. Et la meilleure manière de le faire, évidemment, c'est de montrer que l'Europe est prête à réagir de manière unie, de manière rassemblée et de manière forte. Nous avons des instruments à notre disposition, vous le savez, les accords commerciaux, les tarifs, et pourquoi pas les instruments de coercition, anti-coercition. En tout cas, les menaces qui ont été proférées sont clairement des actes de coercition. Les ambassadeurs en ont parlé hier, nous allons l'évoquer avec nos collègues aujourd'hui et demain, mais il est important que la France et l'Allemagne soient unies pour dire non, tout simplement non.
Klingbeil outlined three possible measures in Europe's response, which are suspending the current trade deal with the US, reinstating European tariffs on US imports, and utilizing the European Union's full range of economic tools to combat economic blackmail. Lescure, echoing Klingbeil's statement, said blackmail between longtime allies is unacceptable and emphasized the need for a coordinated European response. And moving ahead, let's also tell you that German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has expressed opposition to escalating tensions with the United States after Trump threatened these tariffs on European Union members, including Germany, unless Greenland is ceded to the US. The comments come amid a growing diplomatic standoff between the US and European Union, with Trump's provocative stance on Greenland fueling further tensions. Germany has made it clear it will not back down in the face of trade pressure, signaling a readiness to retaliate if necessary. Mark Sutherland, who's a geopolitical commentator, joins me in this discussion from London. Mark, thank you very much for joining us. Now, earlier this day, Keir Starmer had issued a statement, and then that was followed by statements from Germany. both Vice Chancellor and Chancellor Friedrich Merz has also spoken that Europe is ready to retaliate and it is in a position to react to the tariffs. Talk to us about some of the measures that can be enforced under the anti-coercion instruments.
Pretty hi, good to be with you once again. I'm rather curious when in 2016 the UK in June actually voted to leave the EU. So when Starmer is talking about this in regard to the sanctions and these tariffs, even though they're going against European countries, then I'm turning around and going, how will that then affect us? Because we're not part of the single market unless we've suddenly been taken in there and the people in the UK haven't been told about that. The other thing is, and I was listening avidly to your previous guest, the Member of Parliament from Denmark, it is understandable how some people are reacting because this is President Trump and how he will conduct things and rattle cages. And I do hope that there will be proper negotiations over this. But the Americans, I respect what the Danish Member of Parliament was saying, but the Americans are concerned about military assets, what is moving under the seas, etc., within Greenland, as you quite rightly said. They've always had people in bases there. I think in regard to tariffs, there will be behind closed doors strong diplomatic conversations about this. And if, as you've just announced, that the Danish team are not going to go to Davos, etc., or have any conversations, then that is sad. But the Americans, and we need a longer conversation, to be frank. They're very concerned about Canada, the Canadian links there, as Canadians are, having just seen Carney go to Beijing and bend over backwards. There is a lot of play here, and in many ways, we are not privy to some of those discussions. But just finally, this is about shaking people up and getting them to come to the table, because as President Trump has said, my priority is defending America, like the priority is of every other country. And we end up talking about what's happened with Russia invading Ukraine in February 2022. Kriti.
Mark, as far as the tariff war is concerned, the GDP of some of these countries could fall drastically by as much as 0.1% to 0.3%. Who do you think is going to be a clear winner if a tariff war indeed takes place? Because as far as military prowess also is concerned, it's clear that European Union is no match to US's military might.
Yes, and as your previous guest was explaining, where I can't just accept the figures that he has given on face value when he says the amount of money that Denmark has spent militarily. But if you look across the board, Europe has relied on America and has not stepped up to then arm itself or put the percentage of GDP that they should do. And I think that's a fair point from the American administration, because under Trump 1, he was arguing that all the time and pushing those things. And of course, the European economy is not, the economies of countries is not in a good place. And frankly, the single market doesn't help in that regard, where we need to be encouraging entrepreneurialism and people being able to trade individually without then having one block to decide what those trade deals are. That's why we voted out. Of course, some people are gonna lose out. But if we look historically and where we are now in regard to, as people say, dealing with Russia, that military expenditure should have been stepped up. Give you an idea, if suddenly now within the UK that we can't even muster potentially up to 70,000 troops, and that we're now turning around and saying, well, any reservist up to the age of 65, we might have to call up. So that gives you an idea of the state of play in the UK, which is not good whatsoever. Kriti.
All right, Mark, thanks for your assessment of the situation and for helping our viewers with your perspective. With that, I request you to stay on as we move on. Viewers, let's also bring you some news from Iran, where National Police Chief has announced that individuals deemed to have been deceived into joining demonstrations labeled as riots will face lighter punishment if they turn themselves in within 3 days. The official stated that young people who were unwittingly involved would not be seen as enemy combatants and would be treated leniently by the Islamic Republic. Authorities have given these individuals a deadline of 3 days to surrender and avoid harsher consequences. This comes as the death toll in the Iran protests has reportedly risen to more than 5,000, including 500 members of the security forces. Western-based Iranian rights groups also say thousands have been killed. I invite Mark to join me back in the discussion. Mark, firstly, would you really say that no non-state actor was involved at all, no US-linked actor or Israel-linked actor was involved in these anti-Khamenei protests?
Yes, very well. The mullahs of Iran saying what they have said, and also Khamenei saying what he said. We have no proof of any actors on the ground from America or from Israel. What we have is the civilians of Iran very bravely saying that they have had enough of the regime, and when this regime or anyone else who's saying that respectfully there may be 5,000 deaths, well, I've seen figures projected of 16,000, 20,000, and even with a chatter of maybe up to 40,000, which is just beyond appalling. And then even shots of independently, which we can verify by seeing it, because there is a history of suddenly people wearing hazmat suits and going, are they then spraying chemicals onto their own civilians, which is just an absolute outrage. And also, where are people on the streets? We've had people going on about the criticizing Israel for what has gone on in Gaza after Hamas attacked them. Then where are people on the street supporting what the Iranian people are calling for, which is to be free and have freedom that many of us actually enjoy? The subject of what just happened outside the UK embassy, of the Iranian UK embassy on Sunday night, is a subject for another day, with the appalling scenes there where the demonstrators were treated. So if we go back to Iran, when someone's turning around and going, well, come in, and then we'll be a bit lenient on you and have an amnesty. Well, I feel I've got a bridge to sell you, because I don't believe that whatsoever. This is genuinely from the ground upwards. People have had enough. They've lived under this for 47, 48 years. They have genuinely, absolutely had enough. Where you have to go back in history, remember the Iraq-Iran war, 8 years, and after the overthrow of the Shah, where the communists really led that, and you've had then the red-green axis. The poor people of the Persian people of Iran have turned around and said, at this point, we have absolutely had enough. And the regime is trying to put this down, trying to put these rioters down in an absolutely vicious way. The other question, Kriti, when you say about, are there other actors on the ground? Well, yes, there are other actors on the ground, and they are on behalf of the regime. What they have brought in, the comments are some of the people that they have brought in to put down this what they call insurrection. Where are they from? They're from other Arabic countries. They don't speak Farsi. Where are they from? Being brought in to then according to the regime, to restore law and order on their behalf. Kriti.
Mark, thanks very much for joining me and for helping us with your perspective. And with that, viewers, let's bring you some updates on the train clash in Spain. Now, reports are revealing that Spanish rail operator And the Transport Ministry have not yet responded to requests for comments on the recent accident, but inspections conducted last week on the IRYO train found no anomalies. However, a joint damage was found on the tracks, which was identified as a long-standing issue. Technicians have now discovered a broken joint on the track, which is considered key to understanding the cause of the accident. Meanwhile, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez has vowed a thorough and transparent investigation into the high-speed train collision in southern Spain that killed 39 people and injured over 120. And some news now from Mozambique, where severe floods have caused and left thousands across a part of the country stranded. The rising waters have submerged trees, leaving only the top branches visible above the surface in footage shared by the UNICEF. The southern African country has been hit by frequent weather-related disasters that scientists say have been exacerbated by climate change. As per reports, this flooding could be the worst in 2 decades. More than 400,000 people have been impacted and more than 29,600 houses have been partially or completely destroyed in 5 affected provinces. While there are no immediate estimates of the number of people killed or injured, authorities have said that more than 100 people have died since the start of the rainy season in October. President Daniel Chapo cancelled his trip to the World Economic Forum in Davos and said that the priority is to save lives. And that's all we have time for. Thanks for watching NewsX World. For all international news and updates.